Pape has just released Arc 7 Chapter 75, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. I highly recommend you check out my Arc 7 Chapter 74 summary. Anyways, let's begin. And by the way, the chapter title is in English, and by the way, this will most likely be the final chapter, and it's most likely on hiatus now, so look forward to more rezero content in a few months. Cecilus' voice and attitude seemed out of place in this hopeless situation. His kimono was burnt and the left side of his face was black, however he still looked normal. Subaru reckons that only the crazy people are still alive. All of the sane people must have died. Cecilus states that Subaru must have had a hard time and judges that Subaru's squad must have been wiped out. However, Subaru hesitates, and Cecilus catches on that Subaru doesn't want to acknowledge the death of his friends. Subaru apologizes for the death of his friends, but Cecilus states that Hyen died a good death, and wishes he could die with a face like that himself, stating that Hyen fulfilled his role. Subaru couldn't believe anything Cecilus was rambling about, and he didn't care to argue about it, nor did he want to look at Hyen's face. Cecilus then states that he's in the middle of a confrontation with a half-naked woman who's running amok on the island. Subaru knew he was talking about Arakiya. Subaru knows that Todd isn't a good fighter, but when he teams up with Arakiya, Todd becomes completely evil. Subaru also notes how he hadn't seen Arakiya since she started her rampage. It seemed like Cecilus was the person that was holding her back. Cecilus states he's having a hard time and thought that only one person could climb the stairs to the heavenly sword. However, Cecilus laughs and Subaru is confused. Why is Cecilus so happy? Cecilus explains that everyone has their own philosophy. Cecilus states that he's having fun because he laughs. Cecilus then states that if you are the star actor in the world, to let the script be close to him instead of leaning on it, and to let the heavenly observers see when and how Subaru does it. Cecilus then asks Subaru about his faith. Subaru thinks Cecilus always mentions these spectators or observers, almost as if there's something otherworldly watching them. However, before Subaru can respond, Cecilus says that break time is over as Arakiya appears. Arakiya was covered in flames. Her magic stick was broken and her eye patch was removed, yet she covered her eye with her hand. Arakiya apologizes to Cecilus, and the surroundings continue to burn. Cecilus tells Subaru to stay or go. Subaru stands up and runs away. Cecilus comments that Subaru has left and states that it seems that Subaru didn't really like him that much. Cecilus also knows that Arakiya is angry at him, but doesn't really understand why. We see that Cecilus has Arakiya's eye patch in his hand and he twirls it around his finger. Cecilus remembered when Subaru asked about being turned into a child, and then Arakiya appeared, so maybe that was related and was actually true. Arakiya's flames go from red to blue, as she mutters that she's been discarded. Cecilus states that maybe they weren't close if she's trying to kill him. However, he states that he will let her get the pain off her chest. Cecilus smiles and looks at Arakiya. She has dead red eyes. However, he doesn't know why, but he mutters that she only fries her eggs halfway done. Cecilus again doesn't know why he says it, but Arakiya gets even more angrier. As the flames consume everything, Cecilus turns into blue lightning and he plunges into the flames. The scene changes. Subaru is out of breath as he runs away from the heat scorching his back. Subaru runs. He realizes that everyone is dead and he cannot do anything to get them back. Subaru thought he could save everyone. He survived Sparker 2 times and he overcame all of the obstacles. In the first place, he only really made it this far because he had the chance to start over. A truly capable person would have been able to do it without dying. Someone like Todd Fang. the ability to overcome all odds on his own, without the ability to start over. They both lack fighting power, so why can Todd do it but Subaru cannot? Due to Subaru's lack of ability, everyone dies. Subaru blames himself and wants to scream as he manages to reach outside into the open air. However, someone calls out to Subaru. We see that this is Tanza. We see that Tanza is limping. One of her horns are broken. She is no longer wearing her kimono, yet despite that she states that Subaru is safe and sound. Looking at her soaking body, Subaru understands that she was thrown into the lake surrounding the island. Due to the fact that there are magical beasts in the lake, and the broken horn that Tanza has, it's obvious that this wasn't an accident. It would be natural for Tanza to cry in her situation or cling to an adult. However, she only looks after Subaru and states that she is glad that he is okay. Subaru collapses to his knees. He is relieved that Tanza is okay, but he was tired of himself. Tanza rushed up to Subaru to see if he was okay. Subaru can see that her white underclothes are starting to turn red. Even when she is wounded, she is still looking out for Subaru. Subaru realizes he cannot live up to Tanza's expectations. He felt resignation, not being able to live up to the expectations and wishes placed upon him was the greatest form of despair. Tanza tells Subaru to be careful and asks about Adora and Hyan. Of course, she didn't mention whites. After all, she saw him get killed before she was thrown off. Subaru states that they're both dead. Everyone was dead because everyone was protecting Subaru. Even Tanza was injured because she tried to protect Subaru. This catastrophe was all of Subaru's fault. Tanza tells Subaru that they need to hide, but Subaru says they'll get caught anyway. Tanza says they should never give up, and says that their Sparker group died for them to survive. However, this just feeds Subaru's conviction. He lied to them, he couldn't back it up, and then they died. Subaru tells Tanza that he is not the Emperor's son. Tanza hears this and looks mortified. Subaru wouldn't blame Tanza if she struck him down, but she just said that she will help Subaru get out of there. Tanza pulls on Subaru's arm and is trying to get him to get onto her back so she could give him a piggyback ride, but Subaru said that he lied to her. Tanza says that they can talk about it later, but Subaru isn't accepting that answer. Tanza then asks if Subaru really believes it. Tanza stops, she kneels down and looks Subaru in the eye, and asks him if he truly believes that Adora, Whites and Hyan died for Subaru for that reason. Subaru says that they died because he is the Emperor's child. Tanza states that Adora, Hyan and Whites were lying, cowardly men. Why would they ever risk their lives out of loyalty for the Empire? In Subaru's mind, it was natural for the citizens to protect the royalty, but Subaru thought about it more. All three of his friends that died were unique, but they surrounded themselves around Subaru because Subaru believed in them. Tanza explains that Subaru spoke to them and listened to them, and that was all. Subaru doesn't really understand this because that's a normal thing to do. However, Tanza says that she feels the same with Yorna, and that just by talking to people, it's enough to want to risk your life for them. Subaru knows Yorna, and Tanza is essentially comparing Subaru's actions to the kindest woman in the Empire. Subaru thinks about his group. He knows a lot about them. Subaru understands that he saved their hearts, but he should not only be able to save their hearts, but also their bodies and soul. The world is ending. The black smoke consumes the island. Subaru doesn't want to accept this and bends his knee. Subaru mutters that he doesn't want to lose to him. A hand taps Subaru's shoulder, and a voice replies. The man carrying an axe states, "I don't care if I win or lose." For a moment, it almost appeared as if he was a different person. His bandana was torn and his orange hair was free. However, his green eyes gave away his evilness. Subaru calls out Todd's name, and Todd states that it was hard catching up to them, and he told Arakiya to use water. Todd then states that Arakiya is in a bind and can't be used at a critical moment. Todd looks less cheerful. His good guy vibe and impression Subaru had of them when they first met was long gone. Todd is a man who lies when he needs to and takes advantage of those around him. Tanza states to stay away as she picks up a pebble. Her strength is not that of a child, but to Todd a pebble is just a pebble. Todd states that he isn't making light of their situation, it's just that they're stuck in a mess. Tanza asks what Todd wants, and Todd states he wants to go home. This confused Tanza. Todd wasn't lying, there was no deceit in his words. Subaru told Tanza to back down and states he will speak to Todd. However, Todd says he doesn't have anything to say to Subaru. Subaru asks if Todd is scared of a dying child, and Todd says he's scared of a child trying to provoke him. Todd never lets his guard down, he never gets provoked, not even when his opponent is a child. Subaru reiterates that he doesn't want to lose to Todd, but again Todd says that he doesn't care as long as Subaru dies. But Subaru states that his loss is a loss of his friends. That's why deep down, Subaru will win. Subaru muttered Todd's name, and then he said, "Return by death." Both Todd and Tanza were confused. Subaru braced himself for the pain, but the pain never came. Why? Had the witch lost sight of Subaru? Subaru understood there was an issue. He didn't know if it was caused by being turned into a child or by being sent to Arakiya. However, Subaru kept shouting "Return by death" over and over again. Subaru shouted to the heavens. Cecilus mentioned that there are observers watching them, so Subaru shouted. Subaru didn't believe that what Cecilus was referring to was the same entity that Subaru was thinking about deep in his heart. However, there was someone watching Subaru, and so Subaru called out to her. "Find me," he shouted, and he called her name. He called the name of Satella, and that was met by a reply of, "I love you." Subaru called out her name, and the world lost its colour. A woman shrouded in shadows appeared before him and caressed his cheek. The words of love swallowed Subaru as the witch enveloped him. The world regained its colour, and Subaru gasped for breath. The change that followed was picked up by both Tanza and Todd as Todd muttered, "What the?" Todd looked around, his expression tightened, not because of what he can see, but what he can hear. The witch beasts on the island were howling, almost as if they lost their minds. Todd recognized that Subaru was the cause. Todd pushes forward towards Subaru, and Tanza throws a rock at Todd's torso, but Todd blocks it with his arm as he swings at Tanza. Subaru pushes Tanza out of the way, and Todd then aims at Subaru's head. However, Todd is knocked away. Todd is confused, and Subaru mutters the words, "Invisible Providence." Subaru states that the next time he will blow Todd's head off. We see that Todd is bleeding and has a broken jaw. Todd stands up and he backs away slowly, realizing he lost his advantage. Todd then retreats into the distance. Subaru collapsed to the floor. We see that Todd actually hit his shoulder with the axe. Tanza starts sobbing whilst holding Subaru's body, and Subaru gives her the spell tool, the black orb. Subaru tells Tanza to not worry about Todd. Subaru knows Todd well enough that he will retreat when injured. Subaru then thanks Tanza. Deep down, Tanza was the person that made him rethink everything. And with that, he believed next time he will save everyone. And with that, his life is extinguished. The scene changes and we see a world shrouded in darkness. The voice says, "I love you," and Subaru says that he knows and that he is going, and with that he's ejected from the Shadow Garden. The scene changes. The sound of a carriage moves. It was not a comfortable trip, However, it was the most preferential treatment they will get. The carriage is protected with earth magic. Todd sees the island in the distance and asks if Arakiya is ready. Todd explains they will need to use the letter and just follow the instructions. However, deep down Todd knows that there's more to the situation at hand. If it was just an easy job, why would they need to send in Arakiya? We see that the spell tool works as a sort of perimeter. When you get outside of the range of the spell tool, you will die. In other words, if you wanted to kill everyone on the island, all you had to do was throw the black orb spell tool into the lake, and everyone on the island would then be outside of the range, and they will die. Todd mutters Katia's name, a person he would sacrifice anything for. However, Arakiya calls out to Todd, saying something is wrong. Todd looks and immediately takes control of the carriage, backing away from the island instead of crossing the drawbridge. Todd realizes that since the island can control the drawbridge, they can essentially control who enters the island. Todd then understands that the Prime Minister's fears were correct and says to Arakiya to retreat. Arakiya then asks if they can win, and Todd says it isn't a fight they can win today. With that, Todd and Arakiya flee the island of Gunenhive, and they don't even approach the drawbridge. The scene changes. Subaru mutters that he knew Todd would run away immediately, but states he's way too quick to cut his losses. Subaru took a gamble by preemptively gathering the entire island towards the drawbridge and making Todd and Arakiya believe there would be an uprising. It made Todd cut his losses and retreat. We see that Tanza is near Subaru, and Subaru just keeps petting her head. Subaru thinks she is adorable and wants to keep petting her until she shrugs him off, but Subaru is told to stop flirting. Subaru turns and sees Hyen standing there. Eudora and Whites give him a look, and Hyen asks why he gets those looks, and he's told that he just has really bad timing when he talks. A voice looms out. It seems the verdict is in. The man looks at Subaru with a frightening expression, as he saw the carriage turn around and flee. Subaru shrugged and said, "Do you trust me now?" Gustav states that under imperial decree that the forces of Gunenhive will form under his banner, the banner of Natsumi Schwartz. With that, there was a lot of applause. Everyone was there. All of the swordsmen came to greet the imperial messengers. Subaru turns around to the kid that was nearby, someone who helped Subaru, and Subaru said he was going and asked what Cecilus would do. We see that Cecilus was watching from nearby and noted how fast Subaru charmed everyone, but stated that he cannot be charmed so easily. Subaru asked for everyone's help, but not Cecilus, and Subaru said he wanted to see the look on Cecilus's face. Either way, Subaru states he will make use of Cecilus now, and Cecilus laughs. Cecilus says that he is the star of the world, and he cracks up in laughter. As he agrees to join Subaru, Subaru suggests that Cecilus call him a new name, the name of Boss. Cecilus doesn't know what this word means, but he likes the sound of it. With that, Subaru and his Barker group are told to move forward, as Subaru states he will punch his father in the head when they get to the Imperial capital. Tanza looked at him, and Subaru says that it's okay. Tanza is the only person that knows the real truth, that he is not the Emperor's son. Subaru mutters that this time he will win. The strongest existence since he was summoned into this world, he will now lay waste to the Valakian Empire. And with that, the chapter ends. And this is going to be the beginning of the hiatus, so do keep that in mind. We will not be getting any web novel chapters for quite some time, and per usual, I'll switch to different content. So it seems like Subaru's return by death was malfunctioning because Satella lost sight of Subaru, which we kind of expected. So his return by death was broken, but Satella seems to be a sort of observer, and when Subaru called out to her, she was of course able to find him again, and that of course fixed his return by death, which means he could go back to his initial starting point, which was, I believe, when he was with Whites under the island. So it seems like Subaru managed to immediately gather everyone to the entrance of the drawbridge and speak to Gustav and say, look, Gustav, these messengers are going to try and kill us all, and if you don't believe me, follow me, and you'll see that if we all gather by the entrance, they'll flee. And that was Subaru's gamble, because, you know, Todd is calculating. The second Todd saw that everyone was standing by the drawbridge, he knew that if they crossed the drawbridge, they could, for example, pull up the drawbridge and prevent their retreat, meaning they would die. And because Todd is someone that's always calculating, the second he saw all of them gathering up, he retreated immediately. And then Subaru said, see, Gustav, I told you they would run away. And Gustav, of course, said, okay, now we're going to be under your banner. So Natsuki Schwartz is essentially leading the rebellion against the Emperor. But of course, that's a lie. And it seems that Tanza is the only person that knows the truth of the matter. And yeah, that was really good. I do feel it's kind of weird that all of the permadeaths got invalidated due to Satella coming back into the picture and fixing Return by Death. But, you know, I did enjoy it, and I look forward to the next situation. Because it's actually good for Subaru, because it seems he has Cecilus on his side now. Because remember that the whole point was to gather the 9 Divine Generals. So we have Subaru that has rescued Tanza, which means Yuna is 100% on Subaru's side. We have Cecilus on Subaru's side now as well. So we have a lot of Divine Generals which are joining Subaru now. So let's see what happens next time.